Dear chess friends, welcome back. This is the third part of my series on the Shamkir chess, Vassily Memorial. I last time finished with my loss to Magnus Carlsen, after which I had 1 point out of 3 games. In the first round, I was paired with black pieces against Ponomariov, version number 4. Shahryar got an advantage in the opening, and in this position he played the correct move, knight e5, preparing to expel my knight from e4 through f2, f3. To prevent this, I played g5, when a simple move, bishop g3, would just give white an advantage, as there might already be some threats like knight takes f7, and if black plays h5, then perhaps knight takes f7 is not entirely clear in view of queen d5, when black generates some threats against g2, but queen e2 is very strong. For example, h4, queen h5, when h takes g3 loses immediately to queen takes f7 and knight g6 mate. And if black just takes on g3, white is much better, as black's king is fairly weak here. There might be some threats connected with knight g4, for example, and maybe even d4, d5 in some lines. So, in the game, Shahryar played f3, which was not the best move, for I won a pawn and attacked his rook now. And he played queen f2. He was probably relying for f5, queen takes h4, when white is winning. Black's queen is very vulnerable, and so is also his king. For example, king h7 allows mate in 2 once again. But king f8 is no better, because white can take on c8. Immediate check on g6 is not that good, because the rook on c1 is still hanging. So he takes first. Now rook takes c8, loses a queen to knight g6, and queen takes d6. So black should recapture with the knight, but now the weakness of his king decides. White first wins the queen and then delivers mate. I played queen e7, after which black's position is already good. White could play bishop d3 with decent compensation, as my king remains weak. But Shahryar played rook a1, and here after rook c8, black's position is already better. I dislike rook c5, but in fact, white's passed pawn is not that dangerous, and my a-pawn might also have a say later on. And white might also have problems with his kingside pawns like g2 and e3 sometimes, if I manage to play queen g5 and at some lines. I played knight d5, which was not a bad move either. Bishop d3 and queen f6 solidly. I was a bit short of time, and this was move 30. And now e4 would have led to a quick draw, I assume. Well, black is a pawn up, but white's pieces are active, and knight g4 does not work in view of king f4 when black loses the knight. Shahryar took on f6 instead, allowing me to take back. And this position looks as a draw, but it's not that simple. I played rook b8, which is a good move, but equally good was f5, knight b2, and knight c3 now. It is a nice idea, because after rook takes c3, white is unable to give his knight for the pawn and has to give the whole rook, ending up in a lost endgame. Or he can also try, maybe he cannot even try rook c1, for he loses on the spot here. After moves like rook c2, there's a2 winning. And white cannot even play king d2, for there is a fork on b1. So white's position would be difficult in that case. And if white plays knight c5, black just brings his king to c6, which should be enough to win the game. I played rook b8, and later there were numerous complications, and I will skip them if you allow me to do that. And later on I was close to winning on move 59. Black is winning after rook a5, rook a8, threatening rook g8, h5, rook g4, attacking the h4 pawn. White can protect it from h1, but his rook would be too passive then, and black could just advance his center pawns. And if white plays e4 here, he loses the pawn, if not the king, with mate. So he loses the pawn. Okay, he gets the h6 pawn in return, but black should win owing to his connected passed pawns here. I played king g6, which is not a mistake in itself, but here I made a responsible move rook a5 on move 60, and it's not good. I mean, I should have played king f6, repeating the moves, getting additional 15 minutes plus 30 seconds per move, and then trying to find some plan. But I played rook a5, after which white could already play e4. For this line is defensible for white, because his rook attacks two black pawns and is ready to capture them with tempo if needed. And the check on g6 is very important. I think I missed this in my preliminary calculations. The rook then returns to e6. Shamkir played king f3 instead, allowing me to correct my mistake with king f6 or rook a3, but I followed the wrong course, playing king h5. And now he played the only move, e4. If he plays something like rook c4, I can follow up with rook e5, and contrary to the previous position, my king is already on h5, which allows me to transpose into a pawn endgame. White is way too slow after king takes e4 here. That's the difference. And if white plays passively, his king will be unable to control both g4 and d3 squares in this endgame. So he loses, because his king will have to allow my king enter d3 square and win the e3 pawn. But in the game, white played e4, which is a very strong move. Rook a3 check, king f2, f4, rook b6. My original intention was e5, but here rook e6 draws again, as in the previous line. It's basically the same position. So I played king g4 instead to cut off white's king, but it's not enough to win. Now I kept the e4 pawn alive, hoping to use it as a shield in the following line. Now black gives check to push white's king off, and now there's f3, threatening f2. And white cannot prevent this threat because he cannot check on b4 because of the e4 pawn. And if he plays rook b2, there is rook e1, threatening a rook e2 check, winning. And rook f2 doesn't help either, for there is, for example, king e3 and f2 when black is winning again. So rook b6 would be a losing mistake, but Shamkir chose the correct move e5, f3, e6, and now black cannot promote his pawn after f2, rook a1, rook f6, for he would be unable to stop white's pawn after e7. White would be winning suddenly. So I gave a check on g2 instead. I was in a time trouble again for the third time in this game. And now Shahryar played king h1, which was a mistake. King f1 was enough to draw. After rook a2, we repeat the moves. And if white plays, if black plays rook h2, there will be rook g6. When white's counterplay comes just in time, before black could deliver mate on a1, for white is ready to queen with check. But king h1 is not good because the king is poorly placed here. And now black was winning after rook g8, but I played rook g7. I rejected rook g8 in view of e7, f2, rook e6 or rook f6 first. It doesn't change anything. And I believe this position to be drawn. I was short of time, tired after almost 6 hours of play. But in fact, black is winning after rook h8, threatening rook takes h4 mate. And after rook takes h8, there is mate again. And if white takes on f2, he is just a rook down. Grandmaster Timan composed a very nice study on this topic. It's much nicer than this particular position where black also has a dual solution rook g4. I probably even saw something similar at rook f2, but I did not realize that black can simply take the rook and deliver mate on h4. So rook h8 was much stronger, and white could also play king h2 as in the game, but here we will see some difference. So, okay, I will proceed to the game. I played rook g7, preventing e7. Now the rook is poorly placed on g7, and Shahryar exploited this. Now we can see the difference because black's rook is attacked. If it stood on g8, black would be winning through king f4, h7, rook h8, for example, when black prevents white's king from entering g7 and then wins owing to Zugzwang. But as it is in the game, black's rook is attacked, and after rook g1, white correctly advanced his king and h-pawn, because he cannot advance his e-pawn, he would lose then, because of king f4, threatening mate in 1. After king h3, black is winning as in the previous line, while after king h5, it's basically the same story. King h4, rook g8. So instead, white played king h5 and h7 to create space for his king. Now I can no longer play king f6, for white would queen with check. And so I sort of repeated moves and then exchanged everything. So it was a draw. It was a long game, which lasted for 6 hours. I was sort of disappointed, but still it was very interesting to play such a strong player. And in the next round, I faced Ding Liren. I will pronounce him as Ding Liren, for it's more understandable in English. It's a very strong player. He had not lost 100 games in a row before losing to Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. And we played this game not so long afterwards. And he decided to play it ambitiously, possibly also taking into account that I spent almost 12 hours playing on the previous 2 days, and I was also preparing against Magnus Carlsen for 5 hours and against Shahryar, so I could be tired. I was tired, but luckily I still managed to play a good game. I did not want to take too too much risks, but on the other side, I wanted to play for the win, at least try it. So I played bishop d3 instead of queen c2, and here I expected bishop b7 and b4, which Dingleren had played earlier. It's a solid continuation, but it allows white to play without any risk and possibly to try something, get some slight initiative. But here followed a6, which was not such a pleasant surprise for me. The point is that now it's not easy for white to play for a draw, because once black plays c5, his position becomes very comfortable. His pieces are harmoniously placed here, after bishop b7, for example. So I played e4, but now white has two major options, d5 and e5, both leading to sharp play. I chose e5, and this position appeared in many games, including two games Kramnik Anand from 2008 World Championship match, in which the Indian Grandmaster won, which helped him to maintain the title. And those games followed up with bishop b7, which I also tried against Grandmaster Lubomir Tachnik about a year before this game. I had not known the theory well back then, but I was playing for the win, as Dingleren was playing against me. And here black played b4, which is the main continuation, and I decided to deviate from main lines with bishop f4, when rook d1 is the main move, attacking the b4 pawn in some lines. And now black decided to deviate from my preparation, perhaps, with h5. Okay, black can play bishop c5, and now h5, which is a more common line, and it might transpose to our game. I decided to play actively. At first I thought about refuting h5, but the move has some idea. Black wants to attack my g2 pawn in some lines, possibly playing something like h4, bishop b7, rook g8. It's not easy to create something here with white. So I played rook c1, and now decided to open the queen side. And here black did not take the pawn because he could not. He would lose his c8 bishop. So he played bishop a6, and in this position white has several interesting continuations, but I chose probably the most promising one, queen takes a3, and it's also a nice one. Black cannot take on b1 for many reasons, queen a8 and queen takes h8 being the simplest, for white's rook is protected. So he took on a3, and now the point is that after knight takes b6, the knight cannot retreat, or can, but then black's rook goes lost. For example, knight d5, when black's position becomes very difficult. In the game it was similar, but black preserved his d pawn. It's bishop c1. Now my rook is hanging, but now black's rook is hanging, as well as his bishop. Rook c8. And we left complications, but soon there will be another complications. After d3, black has a pawn for an exchange, but his d pawn is very strong. He's threatening d2, king e2, knight c3 check. So I played rook h4. I expected the game to finish in a quick draw, but it did not happen. Well, if black plays d2, he still has to solve some minor problems, similarly to the game. For white is threatening f2, f4, and black's knight is in danger. And after e5, g3 we might transpose to the game. In the game, black played e5, g3, d2, rook b4. And now black could draw through king d6, when f4 leads to a forced draw. Instead, white can try something like h4 and maybe h5, when black still needs to be a bit careful, because there are some ideas like rook b8, rook h8, particularly if black's king goes to the queen side. So here the main idea behind king d6 is that after f4, black can attack white's rook after taking on f4 first. Now white can draw with something like okay, rook a4, king b5, and for example rook a2 should be fine, and rook takes d2 for example. But white has nothing more, for rook d4 allows knight b3 when black is ready to attack the rook with tempo after d5, king c4. There are various forks. So black played e4 instead, which is also playable, also not bad. And here knight b3, but here he made an inaccuracy. After king f8, the game would have finished in a draw. White can play f4, but after bishop h6, black's bishop returns into play through king g8 and bishop f8. And the bishop comes in time to help his knight to get back when black should draw easily. But king d6 was inaccurate. In fact, even king d7 was probably more circumspect, as black would protect the e8 square. After king d6, there followed h4 and h5. And my idea consisted in knight c5, rook e8, knight e6, rook h8. Now bishop f8 loses a piece. Now for example, knight g5, rook takes f8, when white should be technically winning. But the main point was that if black plays bishop g7 here, there is rook h7, king e7, and now rook takes g7 and h6. This is very similar to one motif from Mamedyarov Navara game, king f8 and h7, when black's knight stands in the way of his own king. So instead, black can draw by playing f5 here, giving up a pawn, but locking white's rook, king e6, and white's rook cannot escape h7. Nor can black win it, but it doesn't matter. Just waiting is enough to save a draw. But king d7 is not a bad move either. Now I wanted to transfer my rook to h8 without allowing black's knight to enter the d4 square. That's why I played rook b4. And now black had to play knight c5, bring his knight back into play. f5, creating space for his bishop, so that he would be able to escape from white's rook. And now black can just sit and wait, for white king cannot enter the play, as he has to protect f2 and g3 pawns. So this is a draw. But instead, black played knight e1 check, which puts the knight into very dangerous territory. And it is a losing mistake. I played king f3, even king d1 followed by king c2 was very strong here. And now black played king e6. More tenacious was king e7 and king f8, blocking white's pawn, when it is not so easy to catch black's knight on c1, it looks very dangerous, and it's indeed bad for black, but well, it does not have enough time to play rook b2, f4, king e3, king d2. So it's a bit more sophisticated. Black played king e6 here. So I first improved my rook, preventing f6, f5 check. And then I pushed black's king back and subsequently attacked black's knight with my king. For if I played rook b2, hoping for knight c3, king d4, when black's knight would be in a trouble, for example, here, I would have allowed black to play f5 and to bring his knight back. True, black's position still remains bad, but it is better to win the knight than not to do that. So I played king d3. And now black's knight is in a real trouble. For example, knight g1, f4. Now I'm threatening king e3, and then perhaps rook b1, knight h3, rook h1. So we can try knight f3, hoping for king e3, knight e5. But instead, I can just attack the knight with his rook. Rook f2, king g1, king e3, king f6, for example, and rook h2, say. There are already multiple solutions. And now black still saves his knight, but he's unable to stop white's h-pawn. So white is winning here. So instead, black played knight c1 check, but now the main threat is rook b2 with subsequent rook c2 and f4. So black played knight e2, but he resigned after rook b1, for he cannot save his knight. If black plays king f8, there is rook e1, knight c1, f4, knight a2, rook a1, winning. So with this win, I got back to 50% before the free day, and I will tell you about the second half of the tournament in my last video from this series. See you next time, and thank you for your attention. Goodbye.